original size. No, so these are the bars that change her size right there. Okay. I've already got her as big as I can make that window.
Okay.
I just moved it around. Okay.
Hi, and welcome to our next episode of Authenticity. My name is Megan Muesler, and I'm the Executive Director at Lutheran Counseling Services in Orlando, Florida. And we're using this platform to have authentic conversations about life and the crazy COVID that we're in, just in order to inspire people to share honestly their stories and to practice some authentic listening as well. So I'm joined by some people that I have known longer than we should probably admit how long we've known each other. But they're farther away from me than they've ever been in this whole entire world. So Jessica and Lawton, will you guys introduce yourself and just tell about our connections, how you know about me and Lutheran Counseling Services?
So my name is Jessica Thompson and this is Lawton. And we met each other and Megan in college a few years ago.
Yep.
Yep. And we were on the same college group together and became good friends. And that's where Lawton and I met and got married. And Megan met her husband in the same place. And our lives have kept intersecting along the way. Our kids went to the same school, and we've stayed friends for a lot of years now.
We have, for sure. Tell us a little bit about what you guys have been doing or what your roles are right now.
Well, so I used to be a firefighter. It's weird to say because 2 weeks ago today was my last shift at the fire department. So hence the retirement beard going on. But I was also an SMP pastor at St. Luke's in Oviedo. And so God kind of moved in our hearts and said, hey, it's time to take a big step and go do some continued studies at the seminary and then let God send us out somewhere. So we've transitioned up here to St. Louis. We're settling into our home in St. Louis here, getting ready to dive into summer Greek next week. Yeah. And so just kind of a lot of change. We figured, let's move across the country. And God said, hey, I'm going to throw in a pandemic just to make it interesting.
Yeah, why not?
Just spice it up a little bit.
But I will say that along the way, God has been really good. He's opened a lot of doors. Yes. He's given me a great teaching job here. He gave us a great place to live. And wonderful people already here. Yeah. So even though it's a big scary change, he's really been guiding us. He
opened doors even where we weren't looking for doors. They just kind of opened, and you're like, all right, I see what you did there. I wasn't looking for that, but thanks.
How many days have you been in St. Louis? How many days?
We got here last Saturday.
So 10 days?
10 days.
Yeah,
yep.
10 days.
10 days in St. Louis. And how long did you guys live in Florida?
That means we have to admit how old we are, right? Because our entire lives.
Your entire lives, right? Both of you? Your entire lives? Oh my goodness. Yes. That is so crazy.
Yep. So, actually, Lawton has never lived more than 5 miles from the house he grew up in. So
yes.
Yeah.
Wow. So as the world is changing, so is your entire I don't know, everything you've known about the world. So really quick, this wasn't even what we were going to talk about, but the biggest differences you've already seen between St. Louis and Florida, good or bad, what are the biggest differences so far? Because I saw you got rained on this morning, so that's no different.
Oh yeah.
We did. Honestly, I've been super impressed with Midwestern hospitality. I thought we're from the South. We're supposed to be the hospitable ones. The people here have been wonderful and super kind, and so that's been a change I didn't expect. I thought going north it wouldn't be that way, but it's been wonderful. So.
And for me so far, now we haven't really had a lot of interactions with the seminary community yet, so I haven't. It's with COVID, you have to quarantine before you can go there. I like being outside a lot. I love being in the woods on the water, and so I love hiking, and I've done that. I love it in Florida. But hiking up here, we're kind of at the end of the Ozark uplift, and so there's not mountains, but there's big hills and rocks and streams and stuff, and so we did a little bit of hiking, and
I thought
really liked that a lot. Really liked it a lot. And actually, once we got most of our boxes unpacked, I finally got to go for a run again, and I did a 3-mile run, and hills are no joke. That's gonna be something to adjust.
The inclines there are ridiculous.
Yes.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I normally ask people like, what has changed for you in the last couple of months? But clearly everything in your world has changed in the last couple of months. But I'd love to hear from you, like, what the moment you knew that it was going to be a move during COVID, what was kind of the emotions associated with that?
That was hard because Lawton is very adventurous and brave and wants to go see the world. I like routine. I like knowing what's going to happen. And so this is a move we had thought about and prayed about for many, many years. And I had finally gotten to a real place of peace about it. And then COVID, and it terrified me. And I was real close to being ready to stop. And like when we said that God opened up doors for us, I think the moment when he told me it was going to be okay was a couple weeks after the whole COVID thing started, and I was trying to teach from home, and it was scary, and we were having conversations. One question we didn't have answered was the house we were going to live in. Mm-hmm. And out of the blue, God kind of presented this house, wonderful house with the landlords that love to rent to seminarians it was just like the perfect situation for us. And it was, for me, him reassuring me, I need that gentle whisper all the time. Everything's going to be okay. But it was tough.
Yeah.
I was really on the edge of. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I think for me, one of the strangest parts was closing out our time in Florida, especially living in the same place my whole life. It really, I love being with people. And so having to be apart is hard. And that also meant really having to really select who we got to say goodbye to in person, which was hard because there's people that I just wanted to say goodbye to and I couldn't. And I know that things had started to open back up, but we sold our house early. My in-laws had invited us to live with them in that transition period, which was a wonderful experience, but trying to be, concerned for their health and safety and well-being, as well as my own parents who are in that at-risk category, meant that there was a lot of folks that I really wanted to say goodbye to, and I didn't. And now that being said, we have family there, so we'll come back and visit. And so I do take comfort in saying, we'll be back in town at some point, but it was hard to drive out of town and go, man, there's people I just wanted to give a hug to, and you can't really do that these days. It's like air hug.
Or even being able to say like goodbye to your class, or just all the closings that we should be able to do. Yeah. I'm sure, Jess, that was a hard piece too.
That was really hard. Walking back into my classroom for the first time after spring break, weeks later, and seeing all those little desks and the bodies that should have been in them. And even when they came to pick up their supplies, I didn't get to see them one last time, but we had to stand across the room and wear masks, and it just wasn't as it should have been. So. Yeah,
it was. I remember we kind of knew that the email was going to come out that the school year was going to be canceled for the rest of in person was going to be canceled, and I was sitting out on the back porch, and she came out right when the email came out, and she just, she was a hot mess because she knew she wasn't going to get to say goodbye to her class the way she wanted to, and she really loves those kids, and so it was a hard day. And
I think especially knowing that I won't be there next year, it's not like I'll see them again then. So it was tough.
Well, I will tell you, and I bet you don't even know, but you guys did devotions. I know you guys wrote them together. Lawton was the face on most of them, I believe. And y'all joined my dinner table most nights for devotion in the Miesler home. I think Micah might have said one time, really, Lawton's here again, or something like that. But it was, that was a great piece. Tell me how you guys brainstormed that and how you came up with that, and just tell us a little bit about what you did there.
Well, it started as kind of a 1 week thing. When we first shut down, everyone thought it was going to be temporary. And so we were like, I was scrambling to figure out how I was going to teach kids virtually, and he, as a school pastor, was trying to figure out how to connect with families still. And I was like, what? I love to write. Writing is a way I like to connect with God. It's therapeutic for me. So we just came up with this idea that for 1 week, I would write 4 devotions, and then he would tape a little introduction for him, and we would put them out. well, then they were pretty well received after 1 week, and we really enjoyed writing them. I think our principal was wonderful, and he's like, I mean, that's a big commitment. You don't have to do it but it was a joy for us. It was a way we could really stay connected to people that we love, and I think, to me, one of the best ways to handle my anxiety is by serving. And it was kind of hard to find ways you could serve other people when you couldn't be close to anybody. But that was a way that we could still share God's love with people that we love.
Yeah, and it was, and honestly, I mean, it was a lot of fun to write them. It was fun to brainstorm ideas together and just say, hey, what are we going to talk about next week or the week after that, and kind of think about, what we should. And we taped them like a week ahead of time, so it was also trying to think, where is the world going to be in a week, because it's 2020, and I mean, hey,
who knows?
Murder hornets. I mean, whatever. So it was good for us together to just kind of to chat about it and kind of mull ideas over. I'm a verbal processor, so I need to talk through things, and so kind of bouncing ideas off. And some weeks, she'd say, this is it right here. This is the topic we should write about. And she would have this like grand plan. And I'm like, awesome, let's do that. Or, other weeks it was a little different. And it was a lot of fun. It was, and I think for the talking part, here's my shout out to all the AV people and tech people in the world. I love them. I'm so thankful for them, because wow, to be able to just write and then go in there and tape it was amazing to have folks like, Brian Hall there at St. Luke's that just could make it all happen.
Right?
Wow. So they're awesome. Took the stress level down a bit.
Have you guys, so again, I've known you like since the day the two of you started dating. I don't remember.
To be fair, I knew you back in elementary school. So
okay, yes. To be fair, that is true. Like 5th grade at St. Luke's. Oh my gosh, I can't even go back that far. But have you done other things like that as a couple in ministry together, or was that kind of the first big collaborative project thing that you
did? We haven't done anything publicly that way. I don't think we are definitely partners in our ministry. Right. So Lawton is always super supportive to me in teaching, and it's been fun that for the past few years we've been ministering at the same school, because when I had students in my class who needed a little extra guidance, I had somebody who I could talk to who could take them aside and work with them. Or, when he's mulling over a Bible study or a sermon that he's going to write, he can bounce his ideas off me and I can help him. And so we have that partnership in ministry, kind of supporting each other, but we've never produced something to put out together before. So that was new.
Yeah, more practical ministry, day-to-day stuff that's going on, with students and families and things like that. Yeah.
But I love seeing that almost like team ministry approach the two of you had, and just wondered how walking into this new life of Jess and I have often joked about being in pastors' families, and I won't share all of our jokes on here, but how that maybe was like a great stepping stone to do a project like that together and then head into seminary. I don't know, for me personally, I've seen you guys just grow together, and I love seeing that from you. So thanks so much for sharing it and for joining my dinner table.
Awesome. Every night. Thank you for having us. That's wonderful.
It's good to hear. It was really neat to see how far those things went and how many people kind of were a part of that community there as it spread out. So it was kind of fun. So thank you for inviting us in, and we thank God for giving us that opportunity to kind of to serve that way and grow in our relationship and in our faith that way together.
What have been some challenging things, maybe for you or even for the kids, in these last couple of months, other than moving, maybe just like adjusting to all of this kind of chaos in the home and the world? Like what does it look like for you guys as a family?
I think we each have had our own different struggles. Our oldest son graduated 8th grade this year, so it was supposed to be a really big year of transitions and celebrations for him. He didn't get to go on his 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. He was selected to be in the state science fair, and he didn't get to do that. There were a lot of things that he missed. So I think that was extra hard for him. Our little one I think
Little one.
inherited well.
He is not little,
think-
Jess. He is not little.
He'll always be my little one. I think he inherited some of my anxiety about change. So, and I think out of all the people in our family, he is truly the most extroverted one. He doesn't like time by himself. He likes to be with people. So it was hard for him not to be able to be with friends or have sports to play. So I think we've all had our challenges. But a good thing, I think, is that it really has caused us to spend a lot more time as a family. We've always been close, but I think you don't realize how busy your time gets and how much of your time together is actually, what are we doing next? Let's get ready for the next thing, or or watching each other do things. And we've had so much intentional time to spend together. So I think that's, especially in this move where we're moving to a place where we don't have all of our other close friends and family, it's really good that we've had the time to bond with each other. So that's been good.
Yeah, and for sure. You pretty well covered it.
Yeah. She covered it.
Yeah.
I saw too that you guys shared that you had some friends kind of just plan their vacation and time it out to help you move in. So tell me just a little bit about that. That was such a sweet thing you shared on social media.
That was a wonderful gift from God, because I've never was living 4 or 5 miles from the house I grew up in. I've never moved farther than a pickup truck can take me. And so loading up a U-Haul and towing a vehicle behind is a huge undertaking. And our friends they're from St. Louis, so they've got family up here, parents up here, and they were gracious. They said, "Hey, yeah, you know what? We'll road trip up with you." And the husband swapped off with me driving the U-Haul and kind of knew the ins and outs, the finer points of a cross-country move that I didn't know. And so it was such a blessing, just as we had a couple of hiccups along the way. We blew a tire in South Georgia, and things like that.
The U-Haul tire.
The U-Haul tire. So it was fun. We hung out at the truck stop for a couple hours. But as those things happened, they were there with us, and so it was kind of a fun journey as we're transitioning to this new place, to have familiar faces make that journey with us, and to kind of shore us up along the way. God really blessed us with their presence on the trip, and their wisdom, their knowledge, and they're practically family to us. So it was fun to travel that way, and we really enjoyed it. They helped us unpack the truck, and we got everything settled enough. I mean, there were still cardboard boxes around where we were able to have them back over and cook dinner a few days later before they headed back to Florida, and have a little cookout out back. Because, oh my goodness, the first week we were here, it was like highs in the 80s and lows of like 60. And I'm going, it's the end of June. What is this? Now this week it's hot.
What did you come
to? Yeah. Now it's hot this week here, but not that hot. So
it's very hot down here, guys. I'm like, it's awful.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, so it was just,
it was another one of those gifts that God gave us. He just knew.
He just said, "Hey," and I think it was blessing for both of us, for all of us, really, because we were able to swap off driving, because in a U-Haul truck you're driving like 60 miles an hour tops, and so that 1,100 miles takes a long time. 2 days actually.
Much longer than our little spring break trips to.
That's right.
To Georgia when my transmission went out, which was awesome.
That's right.
Oh man. Yep. Good memories.
What have been some of just the mental health concerns or pieces that have bubbled up for you, or people that you've been working with in this time? Like what are the big mental health issues that you've seen coming up?
I think that for people that were already isolated, or already somewhat isolated on their own, when society shut down and said, "Hey, we're closing our doors to everything," it may have felt good at first, because they're like, "Oh wow, I can get away." But at the same time, then with someone that's already on the edge, it's already struggling with depression or something else, you're teetering on the edge, and then you find it very easily to fall off. And so I think there was some that struggled a little bit with that. especially someone that lived alone or lived alone and was in an at-risk, category, whether they had lung issues pre-existing or whether they were of an age category. I think that was tough for a lot of people. Something I saw because they don't have that out. Whereas for those of us that still live in a family group, there's other people in our house that we slowed down, but we're here. So, let's play a card game around the table or something like that. And then when we get tired of each other, let's go to our corners of the house.
Right.
But I think that was tough for some people. And I
think I worried about a lot of children. I was so thankful that the 19 kids that I had in my class were all fine. They came from families who took care of them, and I got to Zoom with them every day, and it was wonderful. But then, I'm on all kinds of teacher forums and just seeing stories from teachers about kids that they couldn't contact or kids that they knew weren't in safe situations. That's hard.
And that's a tough part of it for those kids that don't have a safe home, a structured home where school is that safe, structured place, that constant in their life. And so now suddenly, for them that's taken away, and what that was.
I think when we're in family units and I'm often so guilty on here of saying, like, y'all want to take my kids? Like, you can take them any day you want. I am done having them at my house. But there are people that are alone, alone. And there's people, even church workers. We have a lot of church workers that are single that I've heard, like, nobody's touched them, like given them a hug or a high five or anything in months. And it breaks your heart. And then not having the opportunities to say goodbye like you guys experienced, and the grief and loss that comes up too when we don't have closure. I wonder too about your boys going through transitions. Like, we would know any boys, especially adolescent boys, which, by the way, you have 2 of them, right? Like, they're both technically adolescents. Because I have 2 over here too that are a little nuts. We know just in transitions in general, right, the difficulties that can go on, and just, the anxiety about establishing new friendships and all of that. So what have been the talks with your boys about how to do that in this time of transition, how to take care of themselves and to begin to venture out socially in this unique time?
Well, I think, God gave us a wonderful, I like to call it a village at St. Luke's, a faith village. And that's kind of was the center of our community between that and our neighborhood that we lived in. And so as we transitioned up here, that was something we talked to them a lot about, because they were, growing up there and spending their whole lives there. For them, they're like, you're making me leave all my friends behind. I'm not, I think even Jonathan said at one point, it's like, I'm not making any friends in St. Louis. I'm not gonna. And we're like, you will. And so we talked to them about, you're going to have a new school, or, we're going to have a new church family up there that we can be a part of with a youth group to plug into. And then you're going to find there's kids there that like sports too, or that like, Minecraft also. And so there was a lot of talk about that. We try to kind of center that our life around that faith community, because that's been the center of their life since they were born. And so there's a lot of conversations about that, and about just reminding them that God is with them in that transition. And it doesn't mean it won't be hard, but we're also all in it. He's sending us all here together as a family. And so we're all having to make new friends. We're all having to kind of make that work. And also, I think the other reminder that we gave them was, we'll be back to visit Florida. So yes, you're not living in the same city as those friends anymore, but when we go back for Christmas, we'll get to see some of them, and that'll be an exciting, fun time. The other thing that's been a blessing, I know, for Noah is this, not Zoom, but video chat. Right? He was this morning. He was on a video chat with 5 or 6 of his friends from St. Luke's that he just graduated with, and so even though they're far apart, they're still connected in that way. And so, there's been a lot of talk about how we can stay connected with friends, and also how we can open doors with new friends up here, and trying to focus that around things like youth group, in that church community and getting involved. Noah really likes AV. He loves technology. He helped with AV at St. Luke's. And so the first Sunday we were here, we went to church, and there was a big sign that said, "Hey, we need help with AV. Talk to Pastor Dave." And so I'm like, Noah, there you go.
Yeah.
And he lit up like a light bulb. And so little things like that, staying connected and finding a purpose when you're there, I think is really important for that transition, because then it gives them a little ownership over what's new here in our lives, instead of just being along for the ride. I have a job, I have a purpose. There's a reason for me to be here. I can be a part of this.
And I've been trying to intentionally let them see me when I'm sad too. I have a friend who went through a huge hard life change a few years ago, and I remember she had boys who were maybe just a little bit younger than my boys were, and I remember her saying that she tried to intentionally verbalize how she was feeling to them, to show them that it's okay to be sad. You don't have to be strong all the time. You don't have to always be happy. It's okay to cry about it. It's okay to say that you're scared. And so, when I've been trying to, I want them to see me be positive. There are a lot of wonderful things about here, but I also want them to know that it's okay, that it's hard, and it's okay to say that you miss your friends, or that you're sad. So.
Yeah.
I love that, Jess, and I think like more parents need to hear that, because I hear so many moms that are like, well, I tried to keep it together in front of them. Like I tried not to let them see me cry or be angry. And, my advice often is like, they need to see you fall apart so that they don't feel abnormal when they fall apart.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's so key, because we wouldn't ever want anybody to walk through a transition thinking like, oh, this will just be a breeze. Moving across the country and, having a new church home that you've never had your whole life is not just a breeze. It is a difficult transition. And it made me think too, I remember growing up as a pastor's kid, the first time I got to church shop my own, like I got to make my own decisions about where, and it just strikes me a lot. And you've never gone to any other, well, we went to Hope together, but really you didn't, you haven't ever church shopped it, have you?
Nope. No. And it's kind of funny, even here, we really didn't church shop a whole lot. I mean, God opened another door we weren't looking for. We were introduced to a pastor and his wife that are doing some urban ministry here in St. Louis, and we met with them in January. It was kind of an impromptu, like we just got together and got along with them really well, and so we plugged in there. And then Jessica, the school she's teaching at, there's a church that she'll be connected with through there. So we've got kind of two church villages that we'll be a part of. And so it's kind of funny because, you think church shopping, because in St. Louis, you can't really throw a rock without hitting something Lutheran. And so, but we kind of flew in and we're like, here, we're squared away. God kind of planted us right where he wanted us here. And so, it'll be interesting to see how he works through that to grow us and change us, because
teach us new things.
And teach us new things about ministry, because it's a situation we've never been in before. So we're kind of excited about what that holds a little bit. I mean, there's, I guess, a little bit of fear in that too, because we just don't know what that all holds. But it's one of those, it's a good fear. It's an excited fear.
So one of the other things I wanted to ask you about, in the last year, you guys and me and a bunch of other people were part of Camp Gladiator. I know that was one of your self-care routines. So in this transition, what have been some of your self-care routines? When
we were in Florida still, so I tried to do the Camp Gladiator online thing.
And it's not working for me very well. I'm not motivated.
No, but one thing I was so thankful for is it felt like the whole quarantine, the weather was beautiful in Florida. We had such a nice spring. And so we really did go out, and my parents had a great neighborhood for walking. So, and since we had a house full of people, my poor parents, when they said we could live with them for a while after we sold our house, did not anticipate having us there 24/7. So we would go out on long walks and bike rides and go jogging. And so exercise was really important for, I think the physicality of getting out stressed, but I also think the routine. I think in the midst of change, I still need to find routines. And so having a routine of going on our long walk every day and getting fresh air was really helpful. And here we're so excited because we have a basement we've never had before. So we're setting up all our exercise equipment in our basement.
Yeah, right underneath where we're at right now is
Yeah.
the weight bench and the dumbbells and all that stuff.
Basements
That
are
is
really
awesome.
Basements are awesome.
Yeah.
And it's also like 72 degrees year round. I don't know what temperature it is down there, but it's like cool as a cucumber.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And we can put all our junk down there so people
Nobody
think our
will
house
see
is
it.
really neat. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. That was like one of the highlights. I'm like, wow, this basement thing's pretty awesome. But yeah, the exercise is definitely kind of that routine of being active. Because I also think on our long walks, we love to talk, and so our long walks, it was about a 3-mile walk around the neighborhood, and so we would talk and process through all the junk, because I got, honestly, with social media, I got so sick and tired of, my feed was just full of
Stress.
it was garbage. It was stress. It was, a lot of opinion articles about things, and so, it was good to get out there and just talk about other stuff. Not that you want to ignore what's going on, but if you just pay attention to what's on the news feed, you're gonna feel like the world's caving in around you all the time. And so it kind of gave us an opportunity to talk about other stuff. Excitement about what was to come, things we were gonna miss from what we were leaving behind. And so I think that was a really important part of that. To give you to give us a little perspective on what was going on. We could balance each other out as one of us is falling off one side of the horse or the other. We can pull the other one back.
And I wonder too, of like this, like almost like a fresh start, able to establish new routines, like new habits that you guys have had on your mind. Like, has that come up?
Yeah, when I was talking before about how we have got to spend more time together, I am determined that even when and if the world goes back to normal, whatever that is, I don't want our lives to ever be as busy and stressful as they were. I just think that we see now which things we really miss, so those things will be important to put back into our lives, and which things just we don't need. And I want to, we've talked about intentionally having a night of the week where no matter how old the boys get, they have to come and have dinner with us that night and do forced family fun. That's what we call it.
Yeah.
Just spend time together. So I think that this is giving us a fresh start, because I think if we were still there, we would probably be easier to just slip back into everything that we were doing before, because that would be the expectation. Mm-hmm. But here, or in 2 years when we move somewhere else, we can make choices and prioritize. And
it'll be a lifelong exercise to make that happen. I read a book a few years back called The Myth of Balance, and one of the chapters was about strengthening your no muscle, and it was talking about, it was a book about busyness, and it was talking about how that being able to say no is kind of a muscle that you have to exercise, or else you fall back into those old routines of being just crazy busy and falling into bed at the end of the day going, I don't know what I accomplished today, but I did a lot of stuff. And so,
I love thinking about that as a muscle that you have to practice. That's a good thought for sure. Well, I want to thank both of you so much for your time. I'm drinking some tea. Jess, were you drinking some tea?
I've got tea too. We both have tea. I have chai and he has green. So.
Ooh, yummy. I have lemon loaf today, and I have a little treat for you on the way of my favorite little tea for the two of you. So it should be coming in soon.
Thank you.
How can we pray for you and support you in this time? What do you have on your heart as a prayer request?
I guess just as we kind of seek out community here, that God gives us, because I think community is so important for mental health, and just that we find the right people to be close to, because we've left behind such wonderful friends and family, and he's
introduced us to some wonderful folks up here already. But as things are, St. Louis is a little bit behind Florida in opening up, which also means the numbers are better up here.
Yeah, I bet they are. Well, and apparently we're the epicenter or something.
But as things get back to normal, kind of finding what that community is going to look like as we find out what the normal is going to be moving forward. It's that would be the prayer, to kind of have, God kind of give us the wisdom and the guidance to land just where He wants us to land. And I know He's going to put us right where He wants us, but just to watch over us as we settle into those new routines and that new community, and into this whole new reality of life that's completely different than either one of us have ever experienced before.
Well, I love watching the two of you grow. Our lives have been intertwined for years now, and will continue to be. Just because you're in St. Louis doesn't mean that they won't be. So I thank you so much for your time, and you are definitely in my prayers as you guys transition up there. And I have lots of St. Louis peeps, so they need to find you and reach out to you. And next week, Melissa Burkholz is going to join me on here. So another St. Louis peep.
So she's my new principal. I'm teaching at her school.
Yes. She's my favorite. I love her. So yay.
So shout out to her school. So when we came in January, Johnny will still be in Lutheran school, and I wanted to teach in a Lutheran school. So we toured several and loved them. They were all wonderful, and there's nothing bad about any that we toured. But when we toured her school, Word of Life, we left, and Johnny said, "Mom, that is the school I am going to. I love that school." And I said, "Well, buddy, I loved it too, but it depends on where I can get a job." He's like, "Even if you get a job somewhere else, I am going to that school." And so I prayed and prayed about it, and that's the call I got. So it's perfect. It's a wonderful school. I'm so excited to be there.
I worked with Melissa at Trinity. Great principal. Love her. Very authentic person. So I'm so glad you guys are connected.
Yes.
Thank you again for your time. You guys are in my prayers, and we'll be on here next Tuesday at 3 for another episode of Authenticity. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Megan. Great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Bye.